Hi, I'm Jared Sitzma.
I'm Justin Sitzma.
Today we're going to be cutting a half a beef and a half a pig to show where different cuts come from and just a little bit of our process.
This half of beef was butchered by our custom butchering truck. This is a standard half of beef. We count down 8 vertebrae and cut the 8 so you have a front quarter and a hind quarter.
All our beef are tagged, and then we check the weight and then match that up with our paperwork for the specific cut sheet each day. This beef was over 30 months of age, and with that the USDA requires that we take out the spine because that's a specific risk material. So we'll go through that right now. So to break our front quarters, we count up 5 ribs on the chuck, and then make 2 cuts to be able to cut it with our saw.
Now that the spine is removed and the beef is broke, we're ready to drop it on the table. Our rib section, and the customer would like short ribs and skirt. So we're going to start with pulling the skirt. Our skirt steak up. Now we're going to be removing the short ribs.
So this is the ribeye, and we offer 4 different options. Kind of as I take it apart, I'll show you each one. Just as this, we would make a bone-in roast, which we would call a standing rib roast. But the customer today is looking for Delmonicals, so we're gonna further process it. So I'll start by pulling out these back ribs. Right now the cap is on the ribeye, and for roast we leave that on, where for steaks we're gonna pull that off. This is what they call an export rib, and that's how we would make bone-in rib steak, cutting it here. But the customer today is looking for Delmonicals, so we gotta take these back ribs off. For the rib, whether it's rib steaks or Delmonicals, the average is anywhere from 10 to 14 steaks. This one got 12. is trimmed up, ready to cut it into roasts. Chuck roasts are completed. They wanted 3 pound, which is what the average is. For most beef, we get 12 chuck roasts, or another option would be chuck steaks, and you figure 2 chuck steaks per every 1 roast. This is the front shank, and the customer today would like bone-in soup bones, so we're gonna cut those for roast.
Here we have our brisket. We're going to remove it from the bone section on the front chest. One option is to leave the brisket untrimmed with the fat cap on it. But for most customers, we trim it up for them.
Got all our cuts from the front quarter, we're going to move to the hind quarter. So with the hind quarter, we split it between the round and the loin section. Right there I separated the short loin from the sirloin, and because this beef was over 30 months, right now if you would cut this, you would get your typical porterhouse from about here and then T-bones on this side. But like I said, because it's over 30 months, we have to remove this spine. So I'll have to pull out the tenderloin and then debone it to get New York strips. This piece is the sirloin tip. It comes from the round. And there's 3 different options that we have for it. You can either cut it into roasts, or more typically we cut it into steaks, which we call a sizzler steak. And then the third option would be to tenderize that sizzler steak into a cube steak.
Have the flank steak would sit right here on the counter.
Next up we have the sirloin, which first we have to remove the tenderloin from the top and then debone it to get a boneless sirloin. So this would be the tenderloin piece that you would receive when you get T-bone and porterhouse. But when you get New York strips, then you also have this piece. And we'll trim those up and cut them into fillets. usually get between 6 and 8 steaks for sirloin steaks.
Here we have the round section of the beef. First, I'm going to start with pulling the H-bone. We have top round, eye of round, and bottom round. This customer would like boneless round roast. But if we were going to do round steaks, we would cut it on the saw across here with the femur bone in the middle. I'm going to start with taking the top round off. Now we'll take the bottom round and eye round off. Here we have the eye round and bottom round.
Now that the round pieces are trimmed up, we'll cut them into roast. So first, we'll get 2 rump roasts, and that's standard for half of a beef. It'll be 2 rump roasts. And then these are larger than the average beef, so we'll probably get another 6 to 8 round roasts. These are going to be 3-pound average. So we've got 8 round roasts and 2 rump roasts, where I would say the average would be 6 round roasts and 2 rump roasts. This will be the hind shank from the round, and we're going to cut those into soup bones. So here's our cuts laid out, and these would be from the front quarter. We got our brisket, soup bones, bone-in chuck roast, the skirt steaks, bone-in short ribs, and some Delmonicos.
Here are the cuts from the hind section. We have the sizzlers, tenderloins, New Yorks, sirloin steaks, flank steak, rump roast, round roast, and soup bones.
So we've got 5 tubs here, 2 tubs of trim that will be made into ground beef, and that's from all the trimmings from the cuts that we did. And then 3 tubs of bones and fat, which will be discarded and go to a rendering plant. So here we have a half a pig, and there's really 4 major sections. It'll be the front shoulder, the loin here, and then the belly is attached to that. And then up top we have the ham. So we'll break it down and show you where different cuts come from.
I'm going to separate it into 3 main pieces.
Here we have the loin, and right here along the top is the tenderloin. From the sirloin end, we'll cut a loin roast, and then the rest of this will be bone-in pork chops. It's also an option to pull the tenderloin off, and then you would get that whole, and then we'll debone the ribs out of there, and you can have boneless pork chops. Here we have a bone-in loin roast, and I'm just gonna clean up the bones so that we'll go through our vacuum sealing packaging. And then I'm going to remove the chine bone on the pork chops and then start cutting those.
Here we have the front shoulder. We'll start by removing the neck bones. We're going to remove the jowl.
Here we have the belly, which is where you get the bacon from. But the spare ribs are on top, so we'll have to pull those out. This customer wants the spare ribs, so what we'll typically do is cut them into 4 sections. Here we have the ham, and this customer wants their ham smoked. We also offer just getting it as fresh roast or fresh steaks, but this one wants it smoked, but they do not want the hock. So I'm going to cut that hock off, and then we'll be left with the ham section to be sent out for smoking.
This video was taken from our processing floor showing you each tagged ham. Each ham and each belly have a specific number that's assigned to each customer to make sure they all get their hams back.
So here we have the front shoulder. We've got the hock, the picnic ham, and then the Boston butt at the bottom. So this customer does not want the hock. They want 3-pound shoulder rolls, and then we'll cut pork steak from the rest. Typically get 1 shoulder roast depending on the size, and then anywhere from 4 to 6 pork steaks. So here we have the shoulder roast, pork steak. Up top is the pork chops. Here we have the belly, which will be made into bacon. The spare ribs, a loin roast, and the ham roast. That will be smoked and then be made into ham roast and ham steaks. Here's our tub of pork trim, which will be made into pork sausage. And then also the fat and skin and bones, which will be also sent to the rendering plant. We just like to highlight 3 things that we focus on to continue to grow. First thing would be safety, whether that's food safety, where we're a USDA plant and we have to follow the USDA guidelines for food safety. We also wear cutting protection, so metal aprons, we have metal sleeves, metal gloves, bump caps, just to keep our guys on the table and working. The second thing would be quality, so whether that's the quality of the cuts that we're doing, of consistent thicknesses of all the steaks, and consistent burger quality.
The third thing is efficiency, and we really appreciate our great team of experienced meat cutters and packagers, and we are constantly